You know some good stuff is happening when it's a 2 video day. Guys, we just got this leak of the Surface Duo 2 camera bump, the camera bump fiasco of 2021. Everyone is reacting very strongly to this camera bump, and I wanted to take some time after I've had some time, an hour or so, to like ruminate on this and think about all the details about this. And I wanted to kind of come back at you with a little bit more here, because I think that there's a lot of stuff here that needs to be maybe said. So the first question that I think needs to be answered here is, why are they doing this? Why are they putting a colossal camera bump with what might be some rather large sensors on the sequel to the Surface Duo? Well, as I'm sure everyone here knows, the original Surface Duo only has the single camera on the inside front of the device. Think of it best as a webcam, not as a proper camera. This thing was designed as to be a Windows device originally, if you remember. And so this was meant to be a webcam to set up, to be able to do Teams, meetings and things like that. This wasn't ever really intended to be flipped around and then be taking pictures of the world, which is why the camera isn't very good. If you look at any selfie camera, if I took my Z Fold, which has pretty damn good cameras, but I used the selfie camera and took pictures of the world, the pictures wouldn't be very good either, because you can't squeeze a good camera sensor into a space that small. That is true of the Duo as well, and that is why the camera is bad. But again, they weren't targeting photography because this wasn't a phone. However, late in their life cycle, they switched to Android because the Windows thing just wasn't going to work for myriad reasons. There's a great article on Windows Central. I think it's called The Secret History of Surface Duo or something to that effect. Switched to Android, which made it a phone, which meant that it was going to be competing with this. Okay, so this versus this was a disaster in terms of photography. If you want full breakdowns of Z Fold 2 versus Surface Duo, look on my channel. I've got a bajillion of them. But as far as photography goes, they were ill-equipped. They heard about it, okay? They heard feedback, a ton of feedback, a ton of reviewers, and a ton of customers saying the camera is horrible. It's so bad. I had a phone that was 3 years old, and I got the Duo, and my 3-year-old phone takes better pictures. Or the act of flipping it around and then it switches to the camera, and I'm going to take a selfie, so I'm going to do this thing and it's going to flip. All the weird motiony gesture stuff just doesn't work well. So they heard the complaints that the software was bad and that the hardware was bad. Okay, so what did they do? They decided to make both of those problems null and void. They said, we're going to put 3 cameras on the back because we believe we have to compete with this device. Look, I mean, are we really going to sit there and act like that's not exactly what they're doing, that they're not trying to compete with the Z Fold line? Of course they are. Duh. That's obvious. So they put a camera bump on there. And look, I'm not going to sit here and discredit the fact that, it's not going to fold flat into phone mode. We're going to address that a little bit here in a minute, because I don't think it might not be as bad as you're thinking. But, laying it flat on a table to use your pen, yeah, I mean, it's going to wobble. So that's 100% true. But not only does this camera bump facing outward clear up the hardware problem, right? It also is going to clear up the software problem, because you don't have to do the flippy floppy shit. You're going to have a selfie camera facing towards you. That hasn't gone away. I'm seeing comments, people saying, oh, now you can't take selfies. Why would you think you can't take selfies? There's still going to be a selfie camera on the inside. That's going to still be there. You're just going to also have a camera on the outside. Not a big deal. So no more software problems, no more hardware problems. I will say this, if these cameras don't take like top level pictures, it's gonna be an absolute disaster, because it's a big camera bump. You're sacrificing a lot of the ergonomics, maybe not ergonomics, you're sacrificing a lot of the aesthetics and the design language, so to speak, of Duo to do this. So if it's not worth it, it's really not going to be worth it. So they heard the feedback. The camera was bad. So they didn't do a half measure, right? They went full measure, and they put a giant camera on here. Why would they do that? Well, currently the Surface Duo, let's be honest, okay, it has sold to a percent of a percent of a percent of the public. This thing did not sell well because it was targeting such a narrow, tiny niche. Most people care about their cameras. You know, I know that some Duo users are like, I don't care about my camera. Well, you're such a minority on that it's not even funny. Most people care about their camera. Microsoft wants Surface Duo to be successful. They want you to walk down the street and to see Surface Duos in people's hands. They have to have a better camera to do that. And yes, are they selling out in a sense? Are they abandoning their initial niche in a sense to do that? Absolutely they are. And if you're mad about that, I get that. I understand. I get where you're coming from, but it is the reality. They're going to tell you that it's going to, we're going to have a good balance between the two. You may not agree, and that's fair. You're allowed to not agree. But that's why they're doing what they're doing. Well, let's try to like sugarcoat this a little bit. So we're looking at this image here, and we're talking about, will this thing be able to fold flat? And no, it won't. But let's remember the bumper, right? And if you look at this bumper, which has the side flappy bit here, right? It's not super, super thin, right? Would it be fair to say that maybe the bumper, if I could get that to focus, is in the ballpark of how thick the camera bump is going to be? Let's do the picture-in-picture thing and see if I can get this to focus. I'm not saying that it's the same, okay? I'm not. But I'm saying that it's in the ballpark. And with that bumper on, you already couldn't fold your Duo totally flat, right? And no one really complained all that much about that. Now, I will fully admit that the fact that the bump is moved inside a bit further will increase that gap even more. But it's not as if everyone was used to this and now they're going to be going to, what would you say? I mean, is it going to be that? Is that going to be the gap? Something, I would say something in that ballpark. Now, what if they pack it in with the bumper again? And the bumper, maybe the bumper extends in further, and maybe the bumper, by doing that, will actually encompass the camera bump. Maybe the bumper comes all the way to like here. And by doing that, it won't wobble on a table as much. It won't sit flat, but it won't wobble. And by doing that, you won't, because I immediately thought to myself, man, if it's sitting like this and there's a pressure point essentially here and you're squeezing here, that could be a real problem. Well, they're going to know that. So I expect there to be a bumper again that will extend the full width of the device. It is going to address that problem I just mentioned. It's going to address, it's sitting flat on a table. Again, it'll be at an angle, but it won't wobble. Is it perfect? Hell no, it's not perfect. When you build a device that looks like this, you can't do a normal camera bump. It just doesn't work. And they're committed to this. So is this the best that they can do? I think so. And do I appreciate that they didn't put a little bit better camera on the back and go, oh, the camera's a little better. Instead, they went, the camera's a ton better. The camera's, on paper, potentially, really, really good. Do I appreciate that they went all out with this? Yeah, I actually do appreciate that. This to me says we're committed to this design to the extent that we think it's worth putting this big camera on there to try and make this thing go mainstream. So guys, look, I know that a lot of you guys really hate this thing, and I'd say in a couple days I'm going to do a video going over your guys' comments and reacting to what you guys think and talking about it. Because it's split. A lot of you guys really hate this. But I wanted to kind of explain why it's here and why maybe it's not as horrible as the first blush might make it seem. So guys, stay tuned for more Surface Duo content just like this. And until next time, stay nerdy, my friends.